Welcome to the Reducing Expenses Summer School webinar. My name is Ratishka Dawson and I am a support consultant here in the Attaché Auckland office. Today we will be covering some tips and tricks that can be implemented in your Attaché system that can help to reduce and control your expenses. So let's go through our agenda for today. We'll have a brief introduction on why it's important to maintain your expenses. Then we'll go through ways that you can analyze your expenses, monitor your expenses, and then control your expenditure, all using Attaché accounts. We'll then have some information on where you can get further assistance and a question and answer session at the end. So this illustrates why the impact of reducing your expenses or increasing your sales. So most businesses don't realize it's actually easier to increase your profitability by reducing your expenses rather than increasing sales. Sometimes a business could focus too much on getting the sales that they end up with a negative cash flow because the expenses were ignored. It's important to focus your decisions on both. Remember, it's not about drastically cutting expenses like a crash diet. Rather, creating a long-term fitness plan which puts in place certain processes that restrains expenses to what is vital to a business. So essentially this says if your net margin is 25%, every $1 saved equals $4 in extra sales. So if we go to the next page, as illustrated by the expense ready reckoner, this is taken from the Attaché Business Improvement Guide. If you have a 25% net margin and you aim to reduce your expenses by $50,000, that it will have the same impact of increasing your sales by $200,000. So you can see definitely which one is easier to try and attain. But remember, a good business owner endeavors to both increase their sales and reduce their expenses. So let's go through some ways you can use Attaché accounts to help us maintain those expenses. So the first thing we'll cover is how you can analyze your expenses. Now the best thing to use is dashboards. With Attaché dashboards, it takes all your information that is stored in your system and displays it in gadgets and gives you real-time updated information. So to first start using dashboards, you need to go through Setups, General Ledger, Financial Ratio Sets, and click Maintain. So this is where you tell dashboards which specific GL accounts to use for when it calculates specific ratios and other information. So here I have one set up. As you can see, you just point to which general ledger account each label requires. So for example, rent paid, I can find that particular expense and click OK. If you page down, there's also your KPIs, so your debtor days, creditor days, stock turn, and operating cycle days. So you can come in and set these targets up. There's no limit on how many financial ratio sets you can set up. You can set up as many as required, one for each user, for example, which has a specific GL accounts they need to use. And then what you can do is you can go through setups, company, options, user options, and this is where you can just come in and point to which financial ratio set user needs to use. Now once that's set up, you can go through your two dashboards, which is under Master File, Clearview, Business Intelligent Dashboards. So this is our dashboards. I'm currently on the controller homepage, and there is a gadget called Expense Analysis, which I have just made full screen. So we've set everything up now, and we're going to go through a few gadgets that you can use to analyze your expenses. So this is a really good one. It's called the Expense Analysis, and you get to specify which expense items to show. So here I've got my salary and wages, rent paid, discounts, for example, I can write financial controller options, and then over here I can specify which general ledger accounts I want this gadget to look at. So you can come in and change those anytime you want. Another good gadget you can use is on the financial controller you have alert. So using alerts is essentially it will create a notification which allows for real-time notification from the data depending on your criteria you've set up. For example, I have two alerts set up. I have one for the bank balance. So if our bank balance goes below our overdraft level, then I've set up an alert to text message our financial controller, and he will call the bank and see what we can do or get the spending under control. That will help save you money with your bank interest fees to reduce the amount you need to pay. So I've also got one here for entertainment expense. So I've set this up to try rein in any unnecessary spending for our entertainment expense. So here you can come and specify what the condition needs to be. So if the entertainment expense is between 500 or 1,000, so that's over our budget, or I can specify it goes greater than our budget of $1,000, then I need it to send a trigger. Now you go to who will be notified. So you can specify if you want to create a to-do list task, which will show up when this particular person logs into Clearview, or you can send an email, or also send an SMS or an email to somebody else. So once you have done this, you can go next and specify how often the alert is run. So I can say I need it to be checked weekly and specify the time. And then you can choose who needs to modify this alert. So when you come here, you can see what your current alerts are, and you can check for any new alerts. And it will go through and check those alerts for you. So this is a really handy thing to use to control the accounts. So everything seems within our budgets, and so no alerts have been sent. Now what you can also do, you've got some gadgets that are available under the Managers section. So here a graph that shows you your expenses. So the red line is based on your budget figures that have been set up under the General Ledger, and then the blue line is what your current expenses are actually, your operating expenses. Now under the Managers you've got an expenses. So this will show you your aged creditors, your salary and wages expense, along with your supplier overdue invoices, as well as a general ledger search inquiry. So this is really handy because I can come in and I can say I want to look at my accounting. I want to look at this particular account, which is my accounting fees, and I've clicked on it and I've just typed a couple of the letters in and it's found those particular accounts. So this is really handy when I go to salary, name our account. I can type in the first few letters and it'll pick up salary and wages account. It will show you what your period balance is, what your budget is for each period, as well as the year-to-date balance. I can then click and drill down to these gadgets. So if I click on my salary and wages, that will then open up that actual general ledger account, and I can come in and I can take a look at the variances and budgets from here as well. So that's really handy. You also have some other gadgets available to you under the accounts page. So for example, if you want to maintain your purchase expenses, a really good gadget to use is the supplier search. I make this full screen. What you can do with this gadget, for example, is I want to see all the suppliers that I've spent a large amount with this year, and I want to renegotiate my terms with them. So what I can do is I can go year-to-date purchases, and I can right-click and say filter for, and I can say greater than $100,000 and click OK. And that will show me the 2 suppliers that I have spent $100,000 or more with, and I can see their phone numbers here as well as a contact person, and I can immediately grab the phone, give them a call and say, hey, it's so-and-so your customer. We seem to be spending a large amount with you this past year. Why don't we sit down and renegotiate our terms with us? Maybe we can get some bigger discounts because we seem to be a larger customer for you. So that's what you can do with this gadget. All the information on one page. Now remember, as you're in dashboard, as people are entering transactions, it will also update here, so you're getting real live data. So those are some ways that you can analyze your expenses using dashboards. Another one is by creating accountability for expenses using cost centers. So cost centers can be set up under Setups, Company, Cost Centers, Maintain. So here I'll just show you the cost centers I've set up. So cost centers are a way for you to track your salary and wages expenses. So it's mainly used for payroll across your different departments in your company. For example, your sales reps or your administration staff. So you can see specifically in your general ledger which department has the highest salaries, etc., or spending the most or taking the most leave, for example. So it allows you to analyze in depth your salary and wages accounts. So the next one we'll go through, as we've covered some ways you can analyze your expenses, is monitoring those expenses. So a good way to monitor those expenses, so you've found out which ones need to be monitored because you've analyzed everything, is by setting up budgets. Now budgets are set up under GL, under Setups, General Ledger, Budgets. So you have various options available to you on how to set up your budgets for your GL accounts. So for example, if I go to an account that needs to be set up, you have Annual, which allows you to enter a total which is then divided equally between the periods. You have Escalate, which allows you to increase each period by a percentage amount or an amount. So I can come in and say what the first period amount is and then escalate each following period by 10%, for example. I can say equal, so each period needs to be the same, which is 500, for example. The next one is index. So it allows you to specify the percentage of the total for each period. So you put in a total amount, and then you can go through and put in an amount for each period. It doesn't need to equal 100, so you can put the total as any amount you like. You then have interpolate, which allows you to put in a first amount and a last amount, and the system will equally split the rest of the periods equally. The next one is percentage, so you can put in your last year's amount, so the actual amount you spent for this account, and then you can increase it by a certain percent. And then you have period, so this allows you to go through and specify amounts in each of these periods. And then last one you have is range. So you can say 500 and it needs to be applied from period 1 to period 3, and then 600 for period 3 to period 8, etc. So that's how you can use the range option. What you can also do is you can export out your actual figures from the system, and then you can export it to Excel and you can modify those figures, and then you can use KFI to import those budgets back into the system so you don't need to type anything in manually. So I will click accept and close. So once you've set up your budgets, you can then report on those budgets and view your variances versus which is caused by the difference between your actual amount and then your budgeted amount. So a really good report to use is under Reports, General Ledger, Financial, and then Standard Financial Reports. So you have a budget variance report. So if I print that report, here you can see what your actual amount was and then what your budgeted amount was, and then the variance as well. So you can go through and you can monitor all your expenses. So for example, I can see our other income. I didn't budget for it correctly. If I double click on it, I can go directly to the GL account and I can view the budgets and then the actuals as well as the variances. So that's really good. You can drill into this report. Now, if you want a more in-depth or flexible budgeting option, you can also use the Clearview Cash Flow Forecaster. So if we go back to our dashboards, under the home page, it's a really good video about Cash Flow Forecaster, and it highlights how you can set everything up here. But essentially it shows you budgets, and then it uses your budgets to forecast your cash flow, and you can also do what-if analysis on it. So what you can do is you can right-click and go Options, and then you've got various options here. You can also specify if you're new. You can choose how you want them to calculate the budgets. So you've got use an average from the period. You've got use the same previous last year, or you can use your general ledger budgets. And then you just go through this little wizard and you can edit your budgets, edit your timings, and then it will calculate your cash flow for you. So there is a YouTube video available with information about Cash Flow Forecaster on the members website as well. Okay, now the next one we'll go through. So those are some ways you can monitor your expenses. Now we will go through some ways you can control your expenditure. So the best way you can control your expenditure is by doing the small little things, improving on the small expenses which in time will build up to be quite expensive. So let's go through becoming a paperless office. So this is essentially sending your documents like quote requests, remittances, invoices via Attaché Online. So users will receive these documents instantly, and you'll also get faster response times. It also allows you to save money on printer ink, paper, stamps, envelopes, etc. All those things that are required to normally get those documents out to your customers or suppliers. Now with Attaché Online or Alex, you can set up different addresses for companies' different departments. So for example, if I go to Tools, Company, Alex Connect, Supplier, Delivery Addresses. Now if I pick a particular supplier, you can see I've got purchase orders. Now they need to go to the sales department email, so I've set that up. And then I've got the remittance advices that needs to go to their receivables department. So normally when you'd post out a letter, you'd put on two different addresses that or they'd just go to the one company's email address, one company's postal address. but you'll never know whether that specific person who requires that document will actually get that letter. With Alex, you can set up specifically who needs to get that specific document. So when you go to print out purchase orders, the system will automatically pick up the correct email address to send it to. What you can also do is you can have your supplier orders sent to your own purchasing manager after you've entered into the system. So you can use, for example, Express Link. So when you print out your document or if you preview any report, so for example, if I preview a particular report, up the top here you have Express Link, and I can click on email and I can click PDF, and then it will open up an email for me and I can send that to my purchasing manager. We're going to enter these purchase orders, or these purchase orders were entered, could you approve them, etc. So instead of printing out reports or documents and putting it on their desk, you can just send them via email. Another good thing to use is using the linked or web address fields on master files to store all related information and documents. So what you can do is you can scan any paper documents you have and save them on your computer or on your network, and then you can use Attaché to link that information into the document, link the user's information to the system. So for example, I can go to suppliers and I can go inquire. Now if I go to BAS, what I can do is I've put in a drive where this person's document's saved, and it will open up that particular location for me. So I can go and edit their location to point to my BAS documents, and as you can see it's stored picking lists, I scanned invoices and I can save them in this folder. So it's a really good way to access those documents. What you can also do, just cancel. Is you can save the actual source document onto your transactions. For example, if I go to supplier invoices and go create, in the header field, what I can do is after I've typed in the information, I can click zoom in. And over here I've used the screen designer to add the source document. I can then click on the search button and I can go and point to that particular invoice and click OK, and that will link the invoice to this particular actual transaction I'm entering. So then when someone looks at this invoice, they can click on Open Link and it will open up that scanned invoice for them. So that means you don't need to save your paper invoices, scan them and save them in the system. So that's a really good way to allow you to move away from storing paper in cabinets and wasting money on inks and printer cartridges. What you can also do is a good way to control expenditure is by setting up your supplier pricing. So this is ensuring that you have the best prices for stock items, maintaining your purchase expenses by only ordering what is needed, and recording various prices allows you to get the best deal. So using the supplier pricing is a way to do this. So under master file suppliers pricing, maintain. So over here I can come in and I can set up what the supplier product code is for this product. And then I can come in and specify the price that the supplier has told me I can get this product for. So once you go through and you set up all the prices for your suppliers, you can then use a price list report, for example. So under reports supplier pricing, price list, you can come in and you can search for a particular product. For example, if I needed to buy my sound systems because we're running low, I can come and print this report for that particular product group. It will show me a list of all the prices available in the system and which person I can get it off, and I can compare to see who I will get the best deal from. So this ensures that you're only spending what you need to, and you're not overpaying for products when you could be getting them for cheaper from a different supplier. So the next one is using fixed assets. So using a fixed asset system to track your assets efficiently is important for insurance and accounting purposes. It also allows you to calculate your depreciation period by period, so you're not just budgeting your depreciation for 1 year, you can split it up period by period. So it gives you a more accurate details of your depreciation expenses. It also will allow you to learn to know when to buy or replace certain assets, so you can budget for those expenses and forecast for them better. So to access your assets, you go to Master File, Fixed Assets, Maintain. Now with fixed assets, you can find all the information you require that's saved on the master files. You have depreciation methods, balances and activities. Now if you wanted to print certain information for each asset, you can use the Quick Find. So here you can see a list of all your assets that you have in the system. And what you can do is you can right-click on the column headings and click Show Hide Columns. You can then go through and you can tick which columns you want to see. So for example, I wanted to see the estimated replacement value and the date that I need to make a replacement. If I need to replace this asset, when does that need to be done? And I can click OK. Then I can also do this as a report. So I can move columns around, so I can put this reference on that side, and I can just drag and drop the columns in any order I want them to be. And then you can click on the print icon. You can choose to have a total amount for any box that has a tick box. Click print and just preview it to the screen. So now I've got that I have available, so I can take this information to PDF to someone and say, hey, these are our assets that are almost needing to be replaced. Do you want to budget for that, and start looking for suitable replacements? And to do a depreciation run, it's very easy. You go through transactions, fixed assets, depreciation run. You can choose which asset you want to depreciate. It will ask you, because I've put it on query mode, so it'll say this is what it's going to depreciate. Do you want to put a comment on that? Just click OK, and it's been depreciated. Now this information can get transferred to your GL, so then you're tracking your depreciation expense in your GL as well. Now the last thing we'll go through is eliminating fraud. Now fraud can be the most costly unexpected expense for a company. It can come in so many different forms, like theft of cash or office supplies, unauthorized customer discounts like mates rates, or even unauthorized purchase orders. So a really good way to prevent, for example, unauthorized purchase orders being entered is by implementing the process for purchasing staff to enter requisitions first. So this process gives the ability for the requisitions to be approved by a manager before it's then converted into a purchase order. So to enter a requisition, you can go through Supplier, Requisition, Enter. If we have a look at a certain requisition somebody's already entered, so this has been entered by Chris. He has specified which items he needs to purchase. He has put in a reason why he wants a purchase order to be entered for these goods, and he's put in a date as well. So I'm logged on as a supervisor, so I have the ability to come in and approve this requisition. So I can tick approve and click accept. And then I can go through, and when I go purchase orders, I can create it from requisitions. It will only pick up those requisitions that have been approved. So that ensures that you're only ordering what is needed, and that someone's double-checked what is being ordered into the system, so it'll help reduce unauthorized purchase orders. Another good way to eliminate fraud is by restricting access to menus or master files for users, and also setting them up with the appropriate password levels to help reduce the risk of fraud occurring. You can also set up password protection on various screens, like overriding an exceeded credit limit. So under a lot of the options, so under supplier options, your password levels as well. So maintaining supplier payment details is protected by a password level. So that ensures that people don't go through and change supplier bank account details, for example. And another good way you can eliminate fraud is by tracking any changes that have occurred in the software. So it helps to make all transactions accountable. So under Tools, Company, you have the options under Track Changes. So you can track files. So for example, I can come in and I can track cashbook master file accounts, or I can track customer bank account files, or I can tick yes to just track all the master file details or all the transaction details. And then you've also got the ability to track tasks by a menu basis, so you can go through and say track when people change the master files, if they go through any of these specific tasks. Once you've set those tracking changes, you can go through and you can print your track changes report. So you can choose the date range you want to track what information you want to see from which date, and you can just preview it. And then this report will give you all those details, so the person who's entered it, what file was changed, which stock item they adjusted, etc. So this is really good for auditors as well, so you know exactly who entered what transaction and what has been changed in your system. So that wraps up our reducing expenses session. Now if you need any further information or assistance on anything you've seen in today's session, you can go to our Attaché YouTube channel, which has again got the cash flow forecaster video, which is very good. And then we have our Attaché's members website and forum as well. If you have any questions about anything you've seen here, you can email them through to the support team. And also if you have other questions, you can email them to the training@attachesoftware.com email address. So if anyone has any questions, just email them through to us and we'll send you out an answer. So thank you all for attending the summer school webinar on reducing expenses. I hope that you've learned something today, and apologies for any of the technical issues that occurred during today's session. And if you could please fill out the feedback survey, which will appear once I end the session. Thank you all for attending. I hope you have a great day.